Hello, you beautiful heart and soul. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you recently hit your head and you're really not sure what to do next, by the end of this video, you are going to have what you should do and some recommended next steps. My name's Alexis Ray. I am an unintentional concussion expert because I have had 6 of them in my life, and a handful of them would be considered severe. It's happened because I played competitive sports growing up, then I was in a car accident. I just have had a knack for living life really hard after everything I've learned through a decade of experience with concussions and brain injury. I really think that more of us are walking around with some brain injury symptoms, or, oh, I just bumped my head and I feel a little weird for a couple of days, than we know. Like, there's a lot of us out there, and maybe that's you. I think that's you because you're watching this video. So recently, you got a bump on the head. You haven't felt exactly normal since then. What should you do? First and foremost, get it documented. If you have a primary care physician, give them a call. You maybe don't even have to go in, but just let them know so that it can get documented in your medical records somewhere. If you're like me, you're in your 20s, you didn't really have a primary care physician, but you go to a chiropractor or you go to some other health practitioner. Even for the ladies in the room, you could tell your OBGYN. If you just go in once a year because that's the one medical appointment you go to, tell that doctor. Let them know, hey, I bumped my head a few months ago. It took me about 5 days to feel normal. I'm doing okay right now. I would like it if you could document this for me. The reason this is so important is because when you are living with brain injury or you're starting to keep track of how many times you've bumped your head, every bump counts. And we sometimes forget it. Listen to this story, okay? It was my freshman year of college. I was on a small scholarship at a junior college in Eastern Colorado playing basketball. I was meeting with the sports trainer. We're going through our history a little bit, like, what do you need to know about my past medical history as a player? And at that point, I had had 2 major concussions, a third, like, somewhat minor one in a 3-year span. And I'm sitting there with this trainer and we're talking about my ankles and how, like, I have one floating chipped bone in my foot and all these things. And then all of a sudden I go, oh, and I have a history of concussions. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I had 2 my sophomore year. I had 1 last year, and they were, like, pretty significant. He's like, that's something you probably should have led with. This was me literally 9 months after, like, my most severe concussion at this point in time in 2011, and I had already forgotten to, like, tell this person who was going to be part of my care team that I had a history of concussions. So that is an example of why we need to get it documented. Whether you're keeping it documented in your own logs, yes, I would say definitely do that. Like, keep your own notebook, keep your own journal, keep your own thing, but get it documented with one of your medical professionals, because we forget about them, which is still so crazy to me sometimes to think about that story. I don't know that I've really told very many people that story, actually. The next thing that is super important to be paying attention to is your own signals. We live in a society where we're not really taught to listen to our body. Like, we see our body as just this thing that we're living in, so to speak, and it allows us to do the things that we need to do. We're not used to having to listen to our body for information on how we're performing or how things are going. Typically, if you have a stomach ache, it's like, oh, let me take some Tums and push through this. Or you're waking up with a hangover and you know you still have to go to work that day, so you take some ibuprofen, you drink some coconut water, and you just, like, keep going, right? You push through. Whether you're a top performing athlete, whether you're a career driven person, whether you're a mom, like, many people in our society do this. I'm talking to you. If this is you, if you have a habit of pushing your body through the hard stuff and you just recently bumped your head, This is the time to check in and listen to your body. This is the time to listen to these signals, these alarms that your body is setting off. If you're sitting at the computer and you're having a hard time focusing with your eyes, that is something that you need to be paying attention to. If you are struggling with patience and you're on the phone with a customer, or your kiddo comes up to you and they're, mom. Customer's like, hey, this really isn't going according to plan. And normally you would know on a day-to-day basis of this being your life how you would ideally like to handle those circumstances. But for some reason, each little thing is just hitting you a little different than it normally would. Like, you are feeling way shorter patience. You like want to snap. You just like have no tolerance for the things that you normally would be more patient for. That is an indicator, a change in our patience, a change in our personality and our demeanor, specifically around our short fuse and our temperament, can be a huge indicator, okay? Big indicator that something in your brain is firing different, something's happening, something's healing, something is recovering. There is something happening here that needs time to heal. So, personalities, any physical signals, struggle with your vision, nausea, loss of appetite, those types of things, whatever signals inside your body are happening that feel like they are not normal, they are not used to your normal function, and you just recently bumped your head, it is likely that you are dealing with a concussion. I also want to say that it is possible for these physical and cognitive symptoms to present themselves days later or a week later. It may not be right away. So if you're like, okay, I hit myself a week ago, I felt fine for the first 5 days, but the last couple of days I really have been short-tempered, I'm struggling with nausea, and I can't sleep. Then I would call your primary care physician and let them know, hey, I bumped my head. I think I need to come in for an exam. I'd like to get this documented. See where I'm going here? See how this all kind of starts leading together? So the third things that you have to do is readjust your priorities. At this point, you know you've had a concussion, okay? You've gone through the couple of days. You're like, it's not really a question anymore of if my life is being affected by this head bump. I now know that my life is being affected by this concussion or this recent head injury. It's a little bit more severe than I was expecting it to be. What do I do now? Life keeps going, truly. You get a concussion, you get in a car accident, you get sick, you get diagnosed with something. Everything about your life is going to keep going. Your job is going to keep going. The people who you are in school with are going to keep attending classes. You are in a moment of time where you're like, I know I should be going forward, but for some reason I'm like stuck in this point right now. And how do I figure this out? What do I do? You can feel panicked. You can feel isolated. You can feel like suddenly something broke inside of you and everything that you're used to being able to move you forward isn't working. All of these feelings can be coming up for you after just recently bumping your head or having a head injury. First things first, readjust your priorities. And the very first priority that has to be moved up to the top is yourself, which means everything else that you're responsible for needs to get delegated, needs to get assigned to someone else in your life. You have to get help with those things that are going to keep moving forward, whether it's arranging different pickup and drop off for the kiddos, whether it's communicating with your workplace. Hey, I'm dealing with something a little bit unique here, out of the norm, not exactly sure how to go about this. Reach out to the HR department and get support from them as to what their steps are for you so that you can make sure you're staying aligned with your employee handbook and the benefits and everything else related to your job. Or maybe you live alone and you need to figure out who can walk your dog because you're having a hard time doing that. Whatever bucket of life that you have responsibilities in, those responsibilities need to get adjusted so that then you can make yourself your number one priority. And let me share this with you. If you do not take action, okay, if you do not do these things that I've shared with you in this video, if you don't get it documented, if you don't pay attention to your body's signals and the messages that your body is telling you that something is wrong, and if you don't hand off the responsibilities that you need to hand off, what's going to happen? Well, everything's going to keep going, but the damage you could be doing to your body could be making your symptoms worse. You could be prolonging how long it's going to take you to recover. So instead of it just being 5 to 10 days, it's now 3 to 6 weeks. And it's going to be a struggle. I also can share this with you from extreme experience. I've had post-concussion syndrome. I have pushed through healing from a concussion. And I have done the complete opposite, where I was finally in the circumstances that like I could wave the white flag and let everyone know that something was seriously wrong, and my entire body shut down. So even if I wanted to push through, I couldn't have. I have lived in all of those circumstances. And the reason I am sharing this with you, the first things you need to do after you hit your head is because I do not want it to be hard for you. I don't want it to be a challenge. It shouldn't have to be this hard. And if more people know, like yourself, what to do if you just recently rung your bell and it's not getting better, it doesn't have to be the worst thing. It doesn't have to be a complete derailment. And it shouldn't. Quite frankly, it would be so nice if we all could just bonk our head and keep going about business as usual. I even had a brain injury friend tell me that from a car accident, there's only like 20% of people that typically don't get better. From a brain injury, there tends to only be like 20% of people that live with long-term symptoms as a result of that injury. And every single time in my life so far, I have, for some reason, found myself in that smaller 20% sliver, or that smaller sliver of percentages. And so sharing this with you, if you are also in this bucket, and maybe you're not, but you're in it right now and you don't know if you're going to be living here forever, these are some things that you can do to get yourself started. Please know that this isn't medical advice. This is just stuff that I've learned that you could do, and want to recommend it to you because I'm hoping that it helps someone. But if there's any grander implications that come along with this, make sure you consult the right people, like your actual care team. This is some general life advice of what to do if you feel like you have a concussion, okay? And with all of that being said, I think that's a wrap. If you liked this video, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be coming out with other videos, plenty more ideas for you to adapt and adopt your life around your chronic illness conditions, around recovering from a brain injury, and really learning how to self-manage your symptoms so that you can have a thriving professional life that is full and has a high quality. Because no matter what health challenge you are facing, you still deserve to have a high quality of life. And I truly believe that. Also, make sure you check out my podcast. It's called Evolving Truths. You can catch it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. Also, we are launching episodes on YouTube every Monday. If you are a female entrepreneur struggling to manage your chronic health conditions and you would like to reach your business goals without symptom flares, make sure you connect with me at alexisray.com to talk about working one-on-one with me so we can help you get those symptom flares under control. That way you can keep moving forward in your business and your quality of life. So until next time, please remember, life is beautiful and you create the magic. Have a good one.